Welcome into Jacket Sports Weekly, our final episode before spring break here at Waynesburg, and the basketball seasons have wrapped up. Both teams exiting in their first game of the tournament to the same team. We'll get into that, as well as
an interview with Tyler Reese. Emily Bennett will sit down with the senior baseball standout. We'll talk baseball, a little bit of track as well with our analysts. We'll have it all for you on JSW.
I'm Dylan Cleland.
And I'm Jack Hillgrove, and it's time for Jacket Sports Weekly. Back here on Jacket Sports Weekly, Jack Hillgrove along with Dylan Cleland. And Dylan, first round exit, as you mentioned in the intro, both for the men's and women's basketball team. We'll start with the men's basketball team. A blowout, just a old-fashioned. One team was a whole lot better than the other team, and that was Westminster over our Jackets.
Yeah, a 95-68 win for the Titans at home. They shot 11 of 21 from three-point range, so that's going to be a rough day when you have to deal with that. Overall, Westminster shooting 50% from the field to Waynesburg's 40%. Looking a little more specific, though, at Waynesburg scoring, you had to like what you saw out of some of the guys. Jake Doherty with 14 points, 4 of 7 from beyond the arc. And in addition to that, Frank Bozovic with 12 points. He was 4 of 10 from the field. Matt Popek, 10 points, but 0 for 5 from three-point range.
Yeah, and it's just tough when a team like Westminster shot out of the gym like they did. Like you mentioned, 40% from the field for the Jackets, and that's a pretty good number. But when Westminster shoots 50% from the field and just outshoots, as you see on your screen there, a couple of Jackets driving in, shooting it well like we mentioned, but there's a Bozovic 3 from the corner. It's not going to work out in their favor when the other team is just shooting lights out.
So taking a quick look at kind of some of the takeaways from this season, only going to lose 3 guys, so a core of this team will return in Matt Popek, Brennan Smith, Frank Bozovic, Aaron Novad, some of the starters that we'll see return. So that's an encouraging sign.
Yeah, and I'm looking for another big year for Aaron Novad, or an improvement on his season. You talk about a guy that kind of was thrown into the fire a little bit in the middle of the season when Ben Vidovich left the team, a guy that needed to step up and fill that role. And he started to in the beginning, but it'll be interesting to see how he transitions into that post role, assuming he'll start next year. The women's side, they were up on Westminster at the start. You and I were in the radio studio for that game, but one thing led to another. The home team just had the momentum rolling and came out on top 88-80.
Yeah, a 9-point lead at halftime, faded. And overall, though, looking at this team, where they came from opening night of this season to where they kind of finished, a big improvement. And if you're head coach Sam Jones, you kind of like what you see. Real quick, a few numbers. Monica Starr, her final game as a Yellow Jacket with 21 points, 8 rebounds. Head coach Sam Jones said after that game she is going to go down as one of the best rebounders that this program has ever seen. So a tremendous career for Monica Starr ended on a high note, as high as it could in a loss. And then Andrea Orlovsky, 21 points, 12 rebounds as well in that game. Yeah,
this women's Jacket, the Lady Jackets, are going to be one of the more exciting teams to look out for next season, in my opinion. They only lose, Monica Starr, Dylan, as you mentioned, will go down as one of the better Jackets to suit up in the orange and black. But who they have coming back next year is going to be really, really important for their success. Erin Joyce is the senior. She's going to be more than likely the leader, the captain, if you will. Haley Porter, who came on the scene as a lights-out three-point shooter at the end of the season, good for 15, 16 a night. Andrea Orlovsky, all-second-team PAC, one of the better players in the PAC, especially for next year. And then players like Casey Castrol, Brooke Fuller, and any freshman that Sam Jones brings in. So it's going to be interesting to see how this young core of players, especially the 3 freshmen, Castrol, Fuller, and Porter, kind of develop into their identities and their roles on this team. And with some leadership, upperclassmen from Erin Joyce, who knows what you'll get next year with this team.
And they all bring a different identity, and that's what you said. We've seen Brooke Fuller develop as a player underneath the hoop. She has a lot of room to grow, but she's done a good job with that. Porter with the 3 ball, and Castrol, injured half the season, has room to move.
Yes, she does. And let's move away from the basketball teams again. The final records: 8-18 for both teams. The women were 6-10 in PAC. The men were 7-9. The wrestling team, a couple of national qualifiers. One of them's no surprise, and the other one coming back from injury. Good to see Mr. Ken Burrs back on the scene.
It was. He had an outstanding weekend at regionals this past weekend with second place. It was his first time to wrestle this season after battling an injury, like you said. He pinned his opponent, who was the number one, or he pinned his first opponent, and then he went in and won back-to-back matches. Defaulted from the championship, but that's understandable dealing with that injury, and he already had that spot locked in at nationals. So going 3-1 on a first weekend back late in the season like this, you can't ask for much more from him. And then senior Jake Evans continues to dominate. A second place for him, a pin in 2 major decisions. He was 3-0 through his first 3 rounds, and then suffered a loss in the finals to the number 2 seed, 5-4. And the positive about that is you get your first loss out of the season out of the way now. So that pressure isn't on you. Kind of get rid of that as you head into nationals.
Yeah, it was his first loss to a Division III opponent all year. And if you could tell, I mean, I would assume that Jake Evans was probably a little upset with a 5-4 decision. He was trying to get a late takedown at the end, wasn't able to score. But that's got to be a little bit of motivation, fuel to the fire for Jake Evans heading into the national tournament. He's got to be the favorite to win it all again, as he came on late last year, caught fire, and ended up winning the national championship in the heavyweight class. But I can't bet against Jake Evans. And Ken Burrs, you know, you have to wonder how that injury will hinder him at all in the national tournament, but he's a really good wrestler as well at 197, and at the final 2 weight classes for the Jackets could be well represented and take home some hardware for the orange and black as well.
I'm excited to see what they can do. Back at the Southeast Regionals, as a team, Waynesburg finished 9th out of 20 teams, and a couple of other guys came close. Dylan Williams placed 8th, but the more impressive kid that was so close, Josh Kozlock, with a 4th place, went down 6-0 in the first period of his 3rd place match, and he fought back, got it back to 6-6, and then it was 9-6 at one point. He went ahead. It was just a really back and forth match, and then he ended up losing 10-9, a heartbreaking loss for Josh Kozlock, who with the win would have clinched a spot in the Nationals. So he was just so close, but not quite there.
Yeah, and that's this, you know, it's kind of been the story with anybody other than Jake Evans this season, is not being able to quite get over that hump, as whereas last year, multiple PAC champions for the Jackets on the mat, but this one has been more so dominated from Jake Evans. And wrestling in that sort of sense isn't, you know, it obviously is a team sport, but when you get to this stage of the season, you know, the individual aspect of the game matters a little bit more. Obviously, Jake Evans is focused on winning that individual national championship at 285. So we'll see how that goes. And here we go, coming to spring break. And while we're on spring break relaxing, the baseball team will be in sunny Florida playing 5 doubleheaders. It's hard to believe that baseball season's already around the corner.
It really is, and I think this year's a very interesting year for the Yellow Jacket baseball team. They bring back a lot of experience and a lot of older guys, which might be able to go a long way. Emily Bennett sits down with Tyler Reese later in the show to get a little bit deeper into it, but he is a player to watch this season. He hit .342 last season, 32 runs, 38 hits, and 7 home runs, knocked in 24 runs. And then also Justin Bubero, another guy returning. The top 3 hitters for this team, Reese, Bubero, and then Tyler Godwin, who missed the first 11 games of the season last year with an injury. He'll be full strength heading into this year. Those 3 guys can all hit the ball well, and if the pitching comes along, that's going to be the key factor, I think. This team has some potential to make some headway in the PAC.
Yeah, and this team, you know, in the last couple of years has not made the PAC playoffs. And this is definitely a reasonable goal for this team. The one thing I do worry about, though, is the pitching. And it was all over the place last year. Mason Miller, who's a junior this year, has the potential to be the most dominant pitcher in the PAC. And we've seen it from him before, but then we've also seen him struggle with command, struggle with control. So it'll be interesting to see how Mason Miller, you have to assume that he is the ace on the staff this year, and rightfully so. But you have to kind of wonder how he'll start this season. I think he'll start out to a good start of the season. You also have guys like Jonathan Kutchman and Brennan Lawless, Ty Wickline in that pitching rotation as well. And then some freshmen that the people are talking about too. Going back towards the field a little bit, Tyler Godwin, you'd have to soon be your left fielder. Mitch Nordstrom's back in center field. And, a lot of people are talking about Tanner Hudak being able to fill in that spot, possibly the third outfield spot in right field, freshman from Trinity. But again, looking at that lineup, Srbrinovic, Vinny Monaco, Tyler Reese, who again Emily Bennett will sit down with, Justin Buberl at first, John Presbolinski, Chris Lee, Andrew Wenzel behind the plate. They have options, they have depth, and it'll be really exciting to see what this team can accomplish in the PAC. They're playing a single matchup against the PAC opponent this year, as well as a doubleheader as well for all the teams. So a switch from an 18-game conference schedule to a 24-game conference schedule. We'll see how that affects the Jackets this year. Some of them are back-to-back. Most of them are back-to-back, playing the single game the day before and then the doubleheader the next day, but some of them are spread out a little bit too. I know Washington and Jefferson, they play the single game, then maybe a week later, they play the doubleheader. But again, an 18-game conference schedule last year to 24 this year.
And that's going to be something to look at. And speaking of the conference, let's take a quick look at the PAC baseball preseason coaches pool. You have W&J in first. That's notable. Teal in second. St. Vincent in the 5. That's who Waynesburg's right behind at the 6. And then Bethany, Geneva, and Chatham round that out. So a lot of potential for the Jackets to do well this season.
We're going to take a break. We'll sit down with Corey Fisher and Dakota Kiefer to wrap up the men's and women's basketball season. Stay tuned. You're watching JSW.
Hello and welcome to The Journey, WCTV's only faith-based program.
Over the course of this semester, we are going to walk with students through their daily lives and take a look at how faith impacts them.
Please take a half hour, sit down, and relax with us as we go on a journey with students, staff, and residents of Waynesburg.
Back on Jacket Sports Weekly to wrap up the women's and men's basketball season. We'll start with Corey Fisher, who's done tremendous work all year. What can you say about the team?
Yeah, the key for the end of the season for the Jackets was that late loss to Bethany 74-72 at home on the Saturday before the playoffs. That was, for me, what kind of tied the end of the season together in an unfortunate finish. Then they went in the first round against Westminster and lost 95-68 with that 14-point performance from Jake Doherty. Now, look at the season next year for the foreshadowing 2019-20 season. They do lose 3 seniors in Clay Carper, who is a senior leader and captain of the team, Nate Gearhart, who is a 3-point specialist who produced a lot of points coming off the bench, and Jake Doherty. And the biggest point for Jake Doherty and Nate Gearhart, in my opinion, was the fact that they could shoot the ball, but they could also go down low, both being bigger guys, and they could have the physical presence. Now, I do like the hopes of this team next season, because if you look at the top of the PAC, where Chatham ended up beating Westminster in the championship, Chatham, it's their 4th year as a program when they won this season, so next year they lose pretty much everybody. With Isaiah Brown leaving, Anthony Bomar, the 2 guards, they lose everybody, so they're going to be a very young team. St. Vincent loses their top scorer, Tom Kronka. W&J is going to be a threat, returning both their top scorers, Primo Zini and Cameron Seaman. So I think this team, though, next year with the 6 seniors they have, Brennan Smith returning, obviously, as their top scorer with 365 total points this season. But also, I like the way Sam Heater and Cam Auld played this season. I think they finished the year well. Frank Bozovic coming back his senior season, he needs to take care of the ball more. And as you guys mentioned in the intro about basketball, Matt Popek's going to have to produce more to fill in for those 3-point shooters. Somebody's going to have to take the ball and be able to shoot from outside the arc, because they're not going to be the biggest team with Aaron Novat as a sophomore being their biggest guy, who did a great season this year. He's going to be better next year, but someone's going to have to step up and shoot the ball for them. And I also like Bryce Washington coming off the bench next year. He's not a scorer, and that's not what he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be there for defense, and he did a great job this season coming off as a freshman and shutting down some of those top players. Westminster, who won it all this year, is going to hurt. They lose Austin Armour. He's a 1,000-point scorer for them and their best player. So that's going to hurt for them. But overall, I think this Waynesburg team is going to have a good shot next year in the PAC, because it's a very equal playing field. And if they can play well together and get chemistry, I think they have a good shot.
Now, Brennan Smith can exercise 1 year of eligibility left. And if he does so, how important is he going to be to this basketball team?
Yeah,
next year?
absolutely. I think so. I think he's going to be there with that. He's going to have to step up as the captain next season, absolutely. Him and Frank Brozovic and Matt Popek are the older and more, I wouldn't say oldest, but more experienced players on the team. And I think Brennan Smith is going to be the man that, honestly, if he works on his shot, he could be the shooter and the big man on the inside, because this year he showed that he is very versatile, even coming off injury. He showed that he was important to this team and really one of their most important players throughout the whole entire season.
All right, Corey, thank you for your excellent work all season long covering the men's basketball team. Now we're going to switch over to the women's side of things, and Dakota Kiefer, our analyst, He's in to break down kind of what went down the last couple of weeks for the women.
Yeah, well, for the women, it was kind of a disappointing end of the season because going in and facing Westminster, that's a team that they destroyed at home, and I thought maybe they could pull it off again. Even the first game against Westminster, they had a big lead early on and then blew it in the second half. But nonetheless, they ended up losing that game, but they had a big second half resurgence in the season, and that's really what drove them towards the PAC playoffs. And unfortunately, they couldn't get a home playoff game. They had to play at Westminster. But they looked really good in the second half of the season, and they're only losing two pretty key players. Hannah Roth, the senior, but she didn't get that much playing time. Monica Starr is probably the biggest loss. Julie DeClaven, she was pretty good, but she was coming off a leg injury that kind of hampered her ability this year. Monica Starr, I think, was the outright leader this year. She's definitely the biggest loss. She's a great player, and she took charge of the locker room. She liked taking in that leadership role this year, and she helped a lot of the younger players develop. And the younger players were very good this year, and a lot of that is due to the fact that Monica Starr sort of showed them the ropes and did very well, while also averaging 12 points per game and averaging over 9 rebounds per game as well. Very good rebounder, one of the best rebounders maybe in Waynesburg history. Very good at that, very good shooter. But there's a lot to look forward to with this team. And one of the keys, I think, is going to be the three-point shooting ability of Haley Porter. And not only Haley Porter, but Casey Castro as well came on towards the end, and she was fantastic. Even in a game at Bethany, she had 3 threes in the matter of a minute. Haley Porter, she was probably the best quick jolt of offense the team had this year. Whenever she came off the bench, it's like you knew she was going to attempt a three, and more often than not, she would hit them. She shot 35% from behind the arc, and that was very good considering she shot over 160 threes, made 62 of them. She was very electric, very fun to watch, and only a freshman. That's what's so impressive about this team. They are really young. And then you have someone like Haley Porter or even Casey Castro that it opens things up down low for Brooke Fuller and Andrea Orlovsky. And speaking to Coach Sam Jones, he said that Haley Porter and Brooke Fuller, as young as they are, they sort of remind him of a Katie Gelman and Addie Knetzer situation where Gelman was a three-point specialist, and she would open up things from behind the arc and open up things down low for Brooke Fuller. And Fuller herself, freshman, averaged over 10 points per game, had the highest shooting percentage on the team at 45%. So there's a lot to look forward to with this team, and I think they could finish maybe middle of the pack in the PAC because there's a lot of teams ahead of them that are losing a lot of crucial players.
Thank you, Dakota, for your in-depth analysis all season long. And when we come back, Adam Morganti will come in to break down the PAC championships in track and field. You're watching JSW.
My name is Corey Tertinick, and I'm here with this week's entertainment news.
Tune in next time to find out what's buzzing on campus. And remember, it's all of your beeswax.
It's all of your beeswax. Remember, it's all of your beeswax.
We're back here on Jacket Sports Weekly and breaking down another season that concluded was the indoor track and field season, and Adam Morganti will dive into the results from the PAC Indoor Championships. Adam, take it away.
Yes, starting with the women's track team, they finished third out of 9 teams in the PAC Championships with 91 points. Westminster took the championship on the women's side. They had 124 points. Leading the charge for the women's track team was freshman Aubrey Wingard, who carried her success from the cross-country team in the fall over to the indoor track, and she finished top 3 in 3 events in the distance. She finished first in the mile run with a time of 5 minutes and 18 seconds. She finished second in the 3,000-meter race with a time of 10 minutes and 43 seconds, and she took third in the 5,000-meter race with a time of 18 minutes and 57 seconds. And some other key contributors for this team is sophomore Catherine Fair got the silver medal with the 60-meter hurdle with a time of 9.57 seconds. So then the relay team finished third with a time of 13 minutes and 41 seconds. And then freshman Ivy Allen finished fourth in the high jump with a height of 1.44 meters. Then Amber Yawk, the sophomore, she finished fourth in triple jump with a time of 10.23 meters. Jordan Simpson finished second in shot put with a throw of 10.85 meters. And one thing I want to point out about this women's indoor track team is a lot of their key contributors, they're young, they're freshmen, they're sophomores and juniors. So they're going to be coming back next year better and stronger than ever, and they'll look to be key contributors again for this women's track team. So I think that's a big thing looking forward. Now switching over to the men's side, they finished fifth in the PAC championship with 54 points. Geneva finished first for the second year in a row. Juwan Jones finished second in the 60-meter dash with a time of 7.10 seconds. And then Mike Trax, who's the only men's jacket track player to finish first in triple jump with a jump of 13.33 meters. He also did well in long jump as he took sixth place with a jump of 6.52 meters. And then some other contributors for this track team is freshman Silas Mays. He took fifth place in the 400-meter dash with a time of 51.51 seconds. And then 3 jackets medaled in a combined 2 throwing events. Blake Feldner, the senior, finished third in the weight throw with a throw of 14.29 meters. And then fellow senior Drew Schwab finished in fourth in the same event with a throw of 13.9 meters just behind him. And then Ryan Vantine finished sixth in the shot put with a throw of 12.99 meters. And again, a lot of these contributors, most like the women's team, they're young, so a lot of them will be coming back and looking to be contributors for next season.
Thanks a lot, Adam Morganti. When we come back, Emily Bennett will sit down with senior baseball standout Tyler Reese. You won't want to miss it. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Watch This. I'm Brennan Rossi.
And I'm Chris Hulse.
On this show, we look at all of the national movies and TV shows that are making shockwaves throughout the society.
Join us as we review and preview Hollywood's best and worst.
On Watch This.
Welcome back to Jacket Sports Weekly. I'm Emily Bennett here with senior baseball player Tyler Reese. Thanks for joining me. So how is the baseball team really preparing for the season and for your upcoming Florida trip?
So, I mean, we've been hitting it pretty hard so far, training 5 days a week. We did conditioning, lifting in the off season, and I mean, pretty much getting together as much as we can, for now at least.
So what are some of the things you want to accomplish personally and as a team kind of on this Florida trip?
I mean, on a team, the biggest thing is a lot of the guys lack experience with each other. So we got to get used to working with each other, playing with each other and understanding how everything's going to work, getting a feel for everything. We have a lot of different guys in different positions, so they have to get comfortable with that. I mean, obviously we want to win when we're down there. So, I mean, the more we win, the better. But we're just going to focus on having fun and, feeling things out.
I know it's super early, haven't started the season yet, but what are some of the strengths and weaknesses of this team?
Strengths, I would say chemistry. Chemistry this year probably has been the best since I've been here. Guys laughing, joking, getting along, people pushing each other. I think that's been helping us a lot. Weakness, like I said, I would say probably lack of experience with each other. I'm excited to see how that pans out, though, once it comes to Florida. But, I mean, I would say that's our biggest weakness right now.
So, senior year for you, what are some of your personal goals and what you're really trying to improve on this season?
So, my biggest thing that I've wanted to improve on throughout college so far is the mental aspect of the game. Staying on top of things, making mistakes, get back up, ready for another one. I don't know. I want to have fun. I mean, my last year with the guys, I'm going to miss a lot of these guys come next year. So I'm going to try and enjoy it as much as I can.
Now, what are some of the goals for the team this year? What is Coach really wanting you guys to accomplish?
Well, first 3 years here for me, we haven't made playoffs yet. So I think that's our biggest thing right now. So if we go into each game, take each game seriously, start off on top, stay with it, stay on top of each other, hold each other accountable, then I think we'll put ourselves in a good position.
Now, you've been a big part of this team for the past 3 years. So what is kind of your role as a leader with this team?
Right now, I would say
kind of a mix between lead by example and vocal. You know, with us having a lot more new guys this year, you know, a lot of the guys, they're not used to the college experience yet. They're not used to the practices, the lifting and all that stuff, and balancing that with school. So I'd say talking to a lot of the guys, helping them work through problems, getting them kind of acclimated to the college life.
Now, what do you kind of find to be the most challenging thing about playing baseball?
Challenging? I'd say, I don't know, that's tough. I'd say everything's pretty hard, I'm not gonna lie. Handling failure is probably the most challenging thing, but also the most important. So, I mean, once you kind of master the fact of handling failure, it's gonna help you a lot once it comes to actually performing.
Now, who's kind of your biggest role model in baseball?
My biggest role model? Does it have to be a player, or does it have to be like a coach or anything? I'd say my dad. He instilled a certain mindset in me from a young age, and I think that's propelled me into the person that I am now and the person that I'm going to be.
That's your senior year. What's kind of, starting to look back over your journey, like what's one of your favorite memories that really sticks out to you?
Favorite memories? I'd say, so as hard as it is, our bus ride down to Florida. Because, I mean, I know last year our ride down there took about 20 hours. It's a long time, especially to be that close with each other. But you start to learn a lot about the guys around you, and you start to really develop friendships, staying in the houses together and all that, spending all that time with each other for that whole week. It's a good excuse to, make new friends.
As we wrap this up, if you could go back and do one thing differently in your baseball career, what would that be and why?
Honestly, I don't think I would change a thing right now. I've learned a lot. I've met some lifetime friends, like guys that I'm going to be with or know probably for the rest of my life, stay in touch with. And I've enjoyed the entire time I've been here. So I wouldn't change a thing, honestly. I want to enjoy it while it lasts.
Thanks for joining me. When we come back, Jack and Dylan will have your Waynesburg University Top 5 Athletes of the Week right here on Jacket Sports Weekly.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids
you.
how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
Time to wrap things up on Jacket Sports Weekly with our top 5 athletes of the week. Jack, who do you have?
Let's start things off. Number 5, Jake Doherty in his final collegiate basketball game in his first collegiate basketball season. 14 points, 4 for 7 from beyond the arc was Mr. Doherty in his final game in the orange and black for the Woo Ballers. Number 4, Jonesy, Jawan Jones, second in the 60-meter dash at the PAC Indoor Championships, his first year on the track as well. Number 3, Jake Evans, great season, qualified for nationals once again. Number 2, I have Ken Burrs after an injury, also coming back in his first action this season, qualifying for nationals. And number 1, Andrea Orlowski, the women's basketball player, a great season for her, qualifying for the All-PAC second team for the Lady Jackets.
I have a couple similar, but also a few different. We're going to start with my number 5, junior Michael Trax from the men's indoor track and field team. He finished first in the triple jump. Despite the team finishing 5th overall, he was the only yellow jacket to place first in an event on the men's side. Number 4, the freshman Aubrey Wingart. You've heard her name before. She led the women at the PAC Indoor Track and Field Championships. 3 times she finished in the top 3 at that meet alone. One first place time of 5:18 in the mile run. She's a freshman and she's been dominant. We'll see what she can do next season as well. Monica Starr is my number 3, the senior Lady Jacket basketball player. Led her team through adversity, some roster ups and downs this season. She was an honorable mention to the All-PAC team, 9.1 rebounds on the season per game and 11.9 points per game. Jake Evans at number 2. He posted a 3-1 record, continues his dominance, and now has a chance at a second consecutive NCAA title. And number 1, Ken Burrs, the junior wrestler, first time out on the mat this season, he didn't look slow at all, and he was able to come out on top and have a chance at a national title as well.
We're going to take a week off here on Jacket Sports Weekly for Waynesburg University spring break, but when we come back, we'll break down everything in Jacket Sports, some baseball, some softball as well. So thanks for watching Jacket Sports Weekly. Stay tuned for next time.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.